Are some serious problems that can come up for dogs in the wintertime.
Dr. Andrea Dennis of the Bloomfield Animal Hospital is here sharing winter safety tips to keep in mind. You know, we all get so cold.
Oh, yes.
So I can only imagine with our pets, and yet sometimes dogs, they have to go outside to be walked. And
They do, and you have to incorporate winter time here in Connecticut and yet keep our pets safe at the same time. And I think if you can just keep in mind their limits. You know, if you have a dog that has very thin fur, almost hair versus fur, we have a couple of pictures. Now, these dogs actually are good size, they're about 50 to 70 pounds, nice fur that you see. So they can probably tolerate a lot more cold weather than your smaller. So you have a Chihuahua that, you know, is low to the ground, that's going to get that, it's going to radiate up that cold weather. So you have to keep in mind, and what happens if they're older? What happens if they're arthritic? You're not going to take them for a long walk in the winter time if you have an arthritic 12-year-old dog.
What drives me nuts is when I see a bicyclist on their bicycle and they've got the dog on the leash and the dog is running next to the bicycle.
I'm with you, Scott.
I'm like,
that.
oh my God, I'm just going to climb out of my skin.
And especially too, that's more the warm weather, but they can get so overheated, but it's just so unnecessary, and the damage that can happen to their paws. So
because they will try and keep up, and that's not good for them.
They will, because their adrenaline is flowing. You know, it's the bike, it's the excitement, and then they suffer for it afterwards. So we'll remind people when the weather gets a little bit warmer that we're not recommending to exercise pets that way.
So we shouldn't just leave pets outside, or how long can they go outside?
I am just a big advocate. Do not leave your pets outside
for any length of time, or like
in the winter, because you just never know. Okay, when we start getting to 45 degrees, you really have to start thinking, you know, is my dog, maybe is he at the door waiting to come in? Then obviously let him in. I would just let them go out to the bathroom. I don't like leaving any pet unattended in the winter, because you never know what can happen. Then we start getting to 32 degrees and freezing, and that's dangerously low to keep any pet outside for any length of time. If you want to take them out on the leash, you can still do that. But you know, again, if they're not healthy, or they have that very thin hair coat, then you want to go ahead and use a nice little coat for them. The coats work out very nicely for them.
So that's not just for
show?
It's not just for show?
No, they really do help keep the heat inside. Now, I will
those
say,
booties, that's a good thing?
Well, sometimes. Okay, so if you're like to go a little bit longer, and yes, some dogs will tolerate booties, but that's not a must. I think the coat and the sweaters are much more important than the booties, but you'll see that. Most dogs don't like them on their feet.
Yeah, exactly.
And their feet and their paws can tolerate a lot more cold than the rest of the body. So I think that's another thing we want to keep important.
And we have to avoid ice.
Please, yes. Avoiding ice, that looks dangerous to me, because we don't know whether that ice is going to be able to hold your dog. And if your dog goes in, you know you're going in after them. It's just dangerous. I have lost patience in ice, and it's because, again, you just don't know. People don't know how thick that ice is. So just
especially with
avoid
the
walking
temperatures
on the
this
ice.
year. It's just, I don't think any pond is safe out there.
If we can just avoid it, because we do see things happen all the time.
We got about a minute left. Be careful with space heaters and heating pads.
Yeah, you know, people will see, especially with cats, you know, people will leave their heating pads on, and I've had cats get badly burned because if they're just a little bit too arthritic to move. So don't use a heating pad to warm up your pets. And also the space heaters, they can be dangerous. And make sure when you bring your pets inside, wash their paws. You know, just wipe them down. Get rid of those de-icers that they've accumulated during the walk. It doesn't have to be a full bath. Just go ahead and wipe them down. I think that's the ideal thing that you can do.
Real quick, we have like 20 seconds. If they get those snowballs, you know how like some dogs get snow, what do you do?
Well, I think the best thing is I usually just take a warm washcloth and then just melt them a little bit.
Away.
And then I kind of use my fingers. Same thing when they're in the bottom of their pads.
Okay.
You know, that's the other thing too, to get that ice, they just pull that right out. But warm it up with a little warm washcloth.
Thanks.